Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship and looked out at the strangest thing he had ever seen. Space was full of broken ships. Not just one or two, but thousands of them. They stretched out as far as his eyes could see, floating, in the dark like pieces of a giant puzzle that someone had thrown away. The ship he commanded was called the Endeavor. It was an exploration vessel from Earth, sent to find new worlds and new life in the galaxy. Jake had been exploring space for 15 years, but he had never seen anything like this. Dr. Lisa Kane walked up beside him. She was the ship's expert on old things and alien cultures. Her job was to study the remains of civilizations that had died out long ago. She had been working on this mystery for 3 weeks now, and Jake could see the worry in her eyes. "Captain, you need to see what we found," Lisa said. Her voice was quiet, like she was afraid someone might hear her. Jake followed her to the science lab. The room was full of pieces of metal and strange materials that his crew had collected from the wreckage outside. Under the bright lights, Jake could see that something terrible had happened here. "Look at this," Lisa said, pointing to a piece of twisted metal. "This came from a Zephyrian ship. We know because of the special alloy they use. But look how it melted." Jake looked closer. The metal was not just broken. It was melted and twisted like it had been put in a fire. But that made no sense. Space was cold and empty. There was no air to burn, no way to make fire. "This is not normal weapons damage," Lisa continued. "Most alien civilizations use energy weapons. They make clean cuts or they destroy things completely. But this..." She picked up another piece of metal. This was burned. Something set it on fire. Jake felt a chill run down his back. "But that's impossible. You can't make fire in space." "That's what I thought too," Lisa said. "But look at this." She showed him a computer screen with pictures of all the wreckage they had found. "We have pieces from 47 different alien species here. All of them fought together in some kind of big battle, and all of them show the same kind of damage." Jake studied the pictures. Ships from the Altarian Trade Federation, vessels from the Corvian Empire, fighters from the Nexarian Republic. All of them were burned and melted in the same way. "Who? Were they fighting?" Jake asked. "That's the scary part," Lisa said. "From what we can tell, all these different species were fighting together. They were allies, not enemies. They were all fighting against the same enemy. What kind of enemy could make all these different civilizations work together?" Lisa was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Something that scared them all." 3 days later, Jake got his answer. He was in his quarters, reading reports from his crew, when Commander Alex Turner knocked on his door. "Captain, we're getting a message from the Zephyrian High Council," Alex said. "They want to talk to you right away." Jake had met Zephyrians before. They were an old and wise race. They had been traveling through space for thousands of years. They were calm and logical, never showing fear or worry. But when the Zephyrian ambassador appeared on his communication screen, Jake could see something in the alien's large eyes that he had never seen before. Fear. "Human vessel," the Zephyrian said. "You must leave this sector immediately. It is not safe for you here." "Why?" Jake asked. "We're just exploring. We're not hurting anyone." The Zephyrian was quiet for a long moment. Its tentacles moved nervously around its head. "You have found the burning fields," it finally said. "The what?" "The place where the fire-bearers made their last stand. Where the galaxy finally stopped them from burning everything we had built." Jake felt his heart start beating faster. "Fire-bearers? Who are the fire-bearers?" The Zephyrian's eyes grew even larger. "You do not know? Your species does not remember?" "Remember what?" "The fire-bearers were like you. They looked like humans. They walked on 2 legs, they had 2 arms, they had hair on their heads. But they were demons. They brought fire to the stars. They burned worlds. They killed billions of beings." Jake looked at Alex, who was standing beside him. Alex's face was white with shock. "That's impossible," Jake said. "Humans have only been in space for 200 years. We've never been to this part of the galaxy before." The Zephyrian made a sound that might have been laughing, but there was no joy in it. The firebearers came to our worlds 800 years ago, it said. They used weapons that created flames in the empty space. They had bombs that could burn for days. They had chemicals that could poison entire planets. But we're not like that, Jake said. We're explorers. We're peaceful. Are you? The Zephyrian asked. Do your people still use weapons that burn? Do you still make explosions with chemicals? Do you still fight wars with fire and metal? Jake was quiet. He thought about the weapons on his ship. He thought about the military bases on Earth. He thought about the wars humans had fought throughout their history. We're different now, he finally said. Perhaps, the Zephyrian said, but you must understand. When the galaxy sees humans with their fire weapons, we remember. We remember the burning, we remember the screaming, we remember how the firebearers took everything beautiful in the galaxy and turned it to ash. What happened to them? The firebearers, I mean. We stopped them, the Zephyrian said. All of us. Every species in the galaxy worked together. We built the greatest fleet that had ever existed. We chased them across the stars. We fought them in this place, in the burning fields. And we thought we had killed them all. Jake felt sick to his stomach. But we're still here. Yes, the Zephyrian said. Some of you survived. Some of the firebearers must have escaped. They must have hidden somewhere far away, and now you have returned. We're not the same, Jake said again. We're not here to hurt anyone. I hope that is true, the Zephyrian said. But you must understand, your very presence here will cause panic. When word spreads that the firebearers have returned, every civilization in the galaxy will be afraid. Some will want to attack you. Before you can attack them, others will try to make deals with you to save their own people. The communication ended, leaving Jake and Alex alone in the quiet room. Captain, Alex said after a long moment, what do we do now? Jake looked out the window at the wreckage floating in space. Somewhere out there were the remains of his own species' ancestors, humans who had been so good at war, so skilled at destruction, that the entire galaxy had united to stop them. We need to contact Earth, Jake said. We need to tell them what we found, and we need to figure out what kind of people we really are. As Jake prepared to send his message to Earth, he thought about the weapons on his ship. Simple things, really. Projectile weapons that used chemical explosives, missiles that created fire and heat, tools that every human military unit carried without thinking about them. But now he understood. These were not simple weapons to the rest of the galaxy. These were the tools of nightmares. These were the weapons that had once burned worlds and killed billions. Jake looked at the burning fields one more time. Then he began to type his message to Earth. Humanity was about to learn that they were not alone in the galaxy. But more importantly, they were about to learn what their ancestors had done, and what the galaxy expected them to do next. Admiral Susan Price sat in her office on Earth Defense Station and stared at the reports covering her desk. In just 2 weeks, everything had changed. Jake Morrison's message from the burning fields had reached Earth, and now similar reports were coming in from human colonies across the galaxy. The pattern was always the same. Human ships would arrive at a new star system, ready to explore or trade. But instead of the usual careful first contact procedures, the aliens would either run away immediately or start begging for mercy. Susan picked up the first report from her stack. It was from Commander Rick Hayes on the frontier world of New, Arizona. Rick was a good officer, calm and steady, but his report sounded like something from a nightmare. The Altarian Trade Federation ship appeared in our space yesterday, Rick had written. Standard diplomatic procedures were followed. We sent our usual greeting message and prepared for negotiations. The Altarian vessel responded by broadcasting what our translators identified as a surrender message. Susan shook her head. The Altarians were known throughout the galaxy as tough negotiators. They never surrendered to anyone. She continued reading Rick's report. When I boarded their ship for the formal meeting, the entire crew was lying face down on the floor. Their captain was shaking so badly he could barely speak. Through the translation device, he kept calling us fire masters and begging us not to burn his ship. The next part of the report was even stranger. The Altarian captain offered us everything, their cargo, their technology, even their homeworld's location. He said his people would serve us faithfully if we promised not to use the burning, death on their cities. Susan set down Rick's report and picked up another one. This came from Captain Danny Walsh, who had been exploring the Outer Rim systems. Met with a Nexarian historical archive ship today, Danny had written. The moment they saw our weapon systems, they started broadcasting historical data at us. Apparently they have records going back 800 years about something they call the Combustion Lords. Susan read on with growing unease. According to the Nexarian records, these Combustion Lords appeared in various parts of the galaxy. Centuries ago, they used weapons that the Nexarians describe as primitive but terrifying. Chemical explosives, flamethrowers, weapons that could burn in the vacuum of space. The report got worse. The Nexarians showed me video records of battles from their archives. Admiral, these Combustion Lords looked exactly like humans. They fought with a style of warfare that the aliens had never seen before. Instead of clean, energy weapons. They used messy, destructive fire-based attacks that left entire battlefields burning. Susan felt a chill as she read Danny's final paragraph. The Nexarian archivist told me that the Combustion Lords didn't just fight wars, Admiral. They were artists of destruction. They would study each alien species to learn exactly how to hurt them the most. They created special chemical weapons designed to kill specific types of alien biology. They were systematic in their cruelty. Dr. Helen Carter knocked on Susan's door. Helen was Earth's top expert on alien life forms, and she had been studying all the reports from human contact missions. Admiral, we need to talk, Helen said as she entered the office. I've been analyzing the alien reactions to human contact, and I found something disturbing. Helen sat down and opened her tablet. Every alien species we've encountered has the same reaction pattern. First, they see our ships and weapons. Then they identify us as humans. Then they immediately classify us as the returning firebearers. Firebearers? Susan asked. That's one of the names they use for our ancestors, Helen explained. Other names include flame bringers, the burning ones, and the species that burns worlds. But they all refer to the same thing, humans who mastered fire and used it to terrorize the galaxy. Helen showed Susan a chart on her tablet. Look at this data. I've mapped every human contact with alien civilizations over the past month. In every single case, the aliens already knew about humans. They weren't meeting us for the first time. They were recognizing us as what? As the most dangerous species in galactic history, Helen said quietly. Admiral, according to these alien records, our ancestors weren't just warriors. They were the ultimate predators. They turned warfare into a science of maximum destruction. Susan stood up and walked to her window. Outside, she could see human ships preparing for exploration missions. Good people, trying to make peaceful contact with alien civilizations. But apparently the galaxy saw them as something else entirely. There's more, Helen continued. I've been studying the specific reactions different alien species have to different types of human equipment. Energy weapons don't scare them much. Computer systems, engines, life support, all normal. But the moment they see chemical explosives, projectile weapons, or anything that creates fire, they panic. Why? Because those are the weapons our ancestors used, Helen said. Think about it, Admiral. Every human military unit carries chemical explosives. Every human ship has missiles that use combustion engines. Every human soldier has weapons that use gunpowder and chemical reactions. Susan realized what Helen was saying. We still fight the same way our ancestors did. Exactly. While every other species in the galaxy moved to clean energy weapons and sophisticated technology, humans kept using fire and explosives. To us, it's just practical. To them, it's proof that we're still the same monsters who burned their worlds 800 years ago. The next report Susan read came from Captain Ben Parker, who had encountered something even more disturbing. Ben had been investigating a dead star system when he found something unexpected. Admiral, I found human ships, Ben had written. Ancient ones, probably hundreds of years old. But Admiral, these ships were armed with weapons I've never seen before. Chemical weapons designed to poison entire atmospheres. Incendiary devices that could burn underwater, explosive devices that could crack moons. Susan felt sick as she read Ben's technical analysis. These ancient human ships weren't just warships, Admiral. They were tools of complete destruction. Every weapon system was designed not just to kill enemies, but to cause maximum suffering and terror. The worst part of Ben's report was his discovery of the ship's logs. The ancient humans kept detailed records of their campaigns, Admiral. They studied each alien species like scientists. They learned exactly what each species feared most, what caused them the most pain, how to break their will to fight. Susan set down the report and looked at Helen. Are we really the descendants of monsters? The evidence suggests that our ancestors became so good at warfare that they forgot everything else, Helen said. According to the alien records, the ancient humans started as explorers and colonists, just like us. But somewhere along the way, they discovered that their natural ability to use fire and chemical weapons made them nearly unstoppable. What happened to them? The galaxy united against them, Helen explained. Every species put aside their differences and worked together to stop the human expansion. It was the only time in galactic history that every civilization cooperated on anything. Susan thought about the implications. And now we're back. And they're all terrified, Helen confirmed. Admiral, I've been monitoring alien communication networks. Word is spreading fast that the firebearers have returned. Some species are already evacuating border systems. Others are trying to build new weapons specifically designed to fight combustion-based warfare. A communication alert sounded on Susan's desk. She activated the screen and saw the face of General Lisa Martinez from Mars Command. Admiral, we have a situation, Lisa said. The Vegan Collective just sent us a formal surrender document. They're offering to submit to human authority in exchange for protection from other human forces. But we've never even met the Vegan Collective, Susan said. That's the problem, Lisa replied. They've heard that humans are back in the galaxy, and they're so scared that they'd rather surrender immediately than risk fighting us. Susan realized that humanity was facing a crisis unlike anything in their history. They had discovered that they were not new to the galaxy. They were the returning nightmare that every alien civilization had been dreading for centuries. The question now was what to do about it. How could humanity build peaceful relationships with aliens who saw them as the galaxy's greatest monsters? How could they prove they were different from their ancestors when they still carried the same weapons that had once terrorized entire star systems? As Susan looked at the reports covering her desk, she knew that humanity's future in the galaxy would depend on how they handled this crisis. They were the descendants of the galaxy's most feared warriors, and every alien civilization was watching to see if the firebearers had truly returned to burn the galaxy once again. Colonel Steve Bennett watched the alien refugees running away from his rescue ships and felt confused. He had come to Proxima 7 to help save lives. A massive earthquake had destroyed 3 cities, and thousands of aliens were trapped under the rubble. His Marine battalion had the equipment and skills needed to rescue survivors, but the moment the local population saw human soldiers with their gear, they started screaming and running in the opposite direction. Even the people who were badly injured chose to crawl away rather than accept help from humans. "Sir, this doesn't make sense," said Sergeant Mike Davis, one of Steve's squad leaders. "These people are dying, but they're more afraid of us than they are of being crushed under rocks." Steve had to agree. He had been a Marine for 20 years and had seen many strange things, but he had never seen people so terrified that they would choose death over rescue. It took 3 days of careful work by diplomat Kate Miller to convince even one alien to talk to them. Kate spoke 12 different alien languages and had experience with dozens of different cultures, but even she had trouble getting the locals to trust her. The first alien who agreed to speak was an elderly creature that looked like a walking tree. Through Kate's translation device, the alien explained why his people were so afraid. "Your people came to our world long ago," the tree-like being said. "They offered to help us too. They said they would protect us from our enemies, but then they burned our forests. They poisoned our rivers. They turned our beautiful world into ash and death." Kate tried to explain that these were different humans, from a different time, but the alien just shook his head. Fire bearers always lie, he said. They always say they come in peace, but then they show their true nature. They cannot help themselves. Destruction is what they are. Even after Kate convinced some of the aliens to accept human help, the rescue work was incredibly difficult. Every time a human soldier used an explosive device to clear debris, the aliens would panic and run. When the engineers used chemical reactions to strengthen damaged buildings, the locals would watch in horror. They think we're performing some kind of dark magic, Kate explained to Steve. To these people, the casual use of fire and explosives seems impossible. Their civilization gave up combustion technology thousands of years ago. Steve watched his demolition expert, Corporal Ray Johnson, use a small explosive charge to safely bring down a dangerous wall. The blast was tiny and controlled, but the alien observers acted like they had just witnessed the end of the world. How do we do our jobs if they're afraid of our basic tools? Steve asked. Very carefully, Kate replied. Meanwhile, in another part of the galaxy, Lieutenant Colonel Gary Adams was having his own problems. His Space Marine unit had been sent to help the Hegemony fleet fight off pirate raiders. The pirates had been attacking merchant ships and stealing cargo for months, but when Gary's ships arrived to help, the Hegemony fleet commanders didn't know what to do. They had requested assistance from Earth, but they hadn't expected actual human warships to show up. Colonel Adams, said the Hegemony fleet admiral through the communication system, we are grateful for your offer of assistance, but we must ask about your intentions. Our intentions? Gary asked. We're here to help you stop the pirates. Yes, but what do you want in return? Gary was confused. We don't want anything in return. We're here to help. The alien admiral was quiet for a long moment. Forgive me, Colonel, but in our experience, firebearers never help without a price. What worlds do you want? What tribute do you demand? We don't want any worlds, Gary said. We don't want tribute. We just want to stop the pirates from hurting innocent people. The conversation went on for hours. The alien admiral could not understand why humans would risk their lives to help strangers without asking for anything in return. In his mind, the fire-bearers were conquerors who only helped people as a way to control them later. When the human ships finally engaged the pirates, the Hegemony fleet watched in amazement and terror. The human tactics were unlike anything they had ever seen. Instead of the elegant energy weapon duels that most space battles involved, the humans used brutal and direct methods. Human fighters launched missiles that created explosions in space. Human warships fired projectile weapons that punched through enemy shields like they weren't even there. Human marines boarded pirate ships and used chemical explosives to blast through bulkheads. The pirate fleet was destroyed in less than an hour, but the Hegemony fleet was almost as scared of their human allies as they had been of the pirates. Your methods are so violent, the alien admiral told Gary after the battle. You fight like you enjoy the destruction. We don't enjoy it, Gary replied, but we're good at it, and sometimes being good at fighting is the only way to protect innocent people. The real test of human-alien relations came when Ambassador Paula Griffin met with the Galactic Council. The council was made up of representatives from 43 different civilizations. They had agreed to meet with humans to discuss the situation, but the meeting was tense from the beginning. Paula entered the Great Council chamber and saw rows of alien delegates. Some looked like giant insects, others were made of living crystal. A few were energy beings that floated in special containers. But they all had one thing in common. They were all staring at her with fear and suspicion. Representatives of the Galactic Council, Paula began, I come here to speak for humanity. We want to live in peace with all civilizations in the galaxy. A delegate that looked like a six-armed octopus spoke first. How can you speak of peace when you carry the tools of the firebearers? Paula looked down at the simple equipment she carried, a small emergency beacon, a basic translation device, a chemical light stick for emergencies. These are just basic tools, Paula said. Show us, demanded another delegate. Paula took out her chemical light stick and bent it to activate. The chemical reaction inside, the stick began to glow with a soft green light. It was a simple device that any human child might carry, but the alien delegates gasped in horror. She creates fire from nothing, one of them shouted. She commands the burning light. cried another. Paula realized that what seemed like a simple chemical reaction to her was like magic to beings who had not used combustion technology for thousands of years. To them, her ability to create light through a chemical reaction was proof that humans were still the same fire-bearers who had once terrorized the galaxy. Dr. Frank Ross, who was studying the galactic response to human expansion, noted that the psychological impact was enormous. Entire trade routes were being changed to avoid human space. Some species were abandoning colonies near human systems. Others were developing new technologies specifically designed to fight against combustion-based weapons. The most dramatic example came when Fleet Admiral Tony Clark received a message from the Vegan Collective. Admiral Clark had never heard of the Vegan Collective before, but apparently they had heard of humans. To the fire-bearers who have returned to the galaxy, the message began. We, the Vegan Collective, formally surrender to your authority. We offer our worlds, our resources, and our people as tribute. We ask only that you spare our civilians and allow our culture to continue. Tony stared at the message in disbelief. We've never even met these people, he told his staff. How can they surrender to us? His intelligence officer, Commander Jane Foster, had been researching the Vegan Collective. Sir, they're a peaceful trading civilization about 200 light-years from Earth. They have no military to speak of. According to our records, they've never been in a war. Then why are they surrendering to us? Because they've heard that the fire-bearers are back, Jane explained, and they'd rather give up everything voluntarily than risk being conquered by force. Tony realized that humanity's reputation was preceding them throughout the galaxy. Species that had never encountered humans were already making decisions based on stories and legends about the ancient fire-bearers. The situation was becoming clear. Humanity had returned to a galaxy that remembered them as the ultimate predators. Every alien civilization was watching to see if humans would pick up where their ancestors had left off, burning worlds and conquering systems. But the aliens were also starting to see something they hadn't expected. These new humans seemed different. They used their feared abilities to rescue disaster victims and fight pirates. They offered help without demanding tribute. They spoke of peace instead of conquest. The question was whether the galaxy would give humanity a chance to prove they were different, or whether the fear of the ancient fire-bearers would drive every alien civilization to unite against them. Once again, as Paula Griffin left the Galactic Council meeting, she knew that humanity's future depended on their ability to show that they could be protectors instead of destroyers. They had the power to burn worlds, but they chose to save them instead. Whether the galaxy would believe them remained to be seen. Dr. Carol Wood stood on the surface of Kepler 442b and stared at the ruins around her. The planet had once been home to millions of aliens, but now it was empty and dead. According to galactic records, this world had been cleansed by fire 800 years ago. Carol had come here to find out what really happened. The ruins told a terrible story. The alien cities had not just been destroyed, they had been burned with scientific precision. Someone had studied the architecture of this species and figured out exactly how to burn it most effectively. Dr. Woods, look at this, called out her assistant, Lieutenant Mark Taylor. He was standing beside what had once been a tall building. Now it was just a twisted pile of melted metal and stone. Carol walked over and examined the damage. The building had been made from a silicon-based material that was supposed to be fireproof, but someone had used chemical accelerants specifically designed to burn silicon. The burns showed a pattern, as if the fire had been guided to hit the building's weak points. This wasn't random destruction, Carol said. Whoever did this knew exactly how to hurt this species the most. Her team had been studying the planet for 2 weeks. Every day they found more evidence of systematic destruction. The aliens who had lived here breathed a different kind of air than humans, but the attackers had used chemical weapons designed to poison that exact type of atmosphere. The alien cities had been built around large water sources. The attackers had poisoned every single water source on the planet, but they hadn't used random poison. They had used chemicals that were specifically deadly to the biology of this particular species. It's like they studied these people for years before they attacked, said Dr. Amy Foster, the team's expert on alien languages. She'd been trying to read the few written records that survived the burning. Captain Ben Parker had been exploring the space around the planet, while Carol's team worked on the surface. What he found was even more disturbing. "Dr. Woods, you need to come up to my ship," Ben said over the radio. "I found something you need to see." Carol took a shuttle up to Ben's exploration vessel. He led her to the cargo bay, where his crew had brought aboard several pieces of wreckage from the space battle that had happened here centuries ago. "Look at this," Ben said, pointing to a piece of twisted metal. This came from one of the attacking ships. Carol examined the metal carefully. It was different from the alien material she had been studying. The design was simpler, more practical, and there were markings on it that made her heart stop. "These are human markings," she whispered. "That's what I thought too," Ben said. "But look at the technology level. This ship was hundreds of years ahead of anything we have now." Carol studied the wreckage more carefully. The metal showed signs of advanced manufacturing techniques that current human science couldn't match. The weapon systems were designed around combustion principles, but they were far more sophisticated than anything in the current human military. "There's more," Ben said. He led her to another section of his cargo bay. Here, his crew had assembled the remains of what appeared to be a control panel from the attacking ship. Amy Foster had been working on translating the writing on the control panel. "Dr. Woods, this is definitely human writing," she said, "but it's an old dialect, very old." "How old?" "Based on the language patterns, I'd say at least 800 years old, maybe more." Carol felt sick. The evidence was becoming clear. The beings who had destroyed this world were not just similar to humans. They were humans. Ancient humans with technology far beyond anything Earth had ever produced. Over the next few days, Ben's team found more human ships in the debris field around the planet. Each discovery made the truth more obvious and more horrible. These ancient human vessels were warships, designed specifically for the destruction of alien civilizations. The breakthrough came when Amy Foster successfully translated a data storage device they found in one of the human ships. The device contained logs from the ship's captain, a human named Admiral Julia Hayes. "Personal log, Admiral Julia Hayes, commanding the human strike force Burning Wind," Amy read aloud. "Day 47 of the cleansing of Kepler 442b, the silicon-based inhabitants proved more resistant to our initial chemical attacks than expected. However, our xenobiology team has developed new accelerants that should complete the purification process within the week." Carol listened in horror as Amy continued reading. "The alien defensive positions were eliminated using our standard burn and break tactics. Engineer Chen reports that our new flame projectors can now maintain combustion in vacuum for up to 6 hours. This should prove useful in our next campaign against the crystalline beings of the Vega system." The logs went on for hours. Admiral Hayes wrote about her campaigns with the calm tone of someone discussing everyday work. She described the destruction of entire species as if she were writing a technical manual. Day 62. The final resistance pocket has been neutralized. The planet is now ready for human colonization. Our biological warfare team confirms that the atmosphere has been successfully converted to human breathable standards. Total native population eliminated. 4.7 million beings. Amy stopped reading. Everyone in the room was quiet. "There's more," Amy said softly. "Hundreds of entries. Different planets, different species, all destroyed the same way." Carol realized they had found the personal records of a human admiral who had spent her career exterminating alien civilizations. But what scared her most was how scientific and organized it all was. Commander Chris Torres had been investigating other parts of the solar system, while Carol's team worked on Kepler 442b. His discoveries were just as disturbing. "Dr. Woods, I found human installations in the outer system," Chris reported. "Hidden bases built into asteroids. They've been there for centuries." Carol joined Chris to examine the ancient human bases. They were military installations, designed to support the human war machine that had once terrorized this part of the galaxy. The bases contained weapon manufacturing facilities that could produce chemical bombs, flame projectors, and biological weapons. There were laboratories where ancient humans had studied alien biology, to find the most effective ways to kill different species. Most disturbing of all were the strategic databases. The ancient humans had cataloged the weaknesses of dozens of alien species. They knew which chemicals would poison which aliens. They knew which temperatures would kill which beings. They knew how to destroy the technology and architecture of every civilization they encountered. "This isn't just warfare," Chris said as they examined the databases. "This is genocide as a science." The final piece of the puzzle came from the personal quarters of Admiral Julia Hayes on her flagship. Amy Foster found the Admiral's private journal, written in the final days of the ancient human empire. "We have become something terrible," Admiral Hayes had written. "When we first left our home world, we were explorers. We wanted to see the galaxy and meet new forms of life. But somewhere along the way, we discovered that we were very good at killing." Amy read more of the journal aloud to Carol's team. "CO, other species fear our weapons, but they don't understand the truth. Our weapons are not just tools of war. They are expressions of our nature. We are the children of fire. We learned to control combustion before we learned to control our anger. We turned the power of burning into an art form." The journal revealed the tragic transformation of the human species. They had started as peaceful explorers, but their natural talent for fire-based technology had made them incredibly effective warriors. Over time, warfare had become their primary focus. "We no longer explore to learn," Admiral Hayes had written. "We explore to conquer. We no longer meet new species to befriend them. We study them to find the best ways to destroy them. We have become the galaxy's greatest predators, and I fear we can never go back to being anything else." The journal's final entries described the growing alliance against humanity. Every alien civilization in the galaxy had united to stop the human expansion. The ancient humans found themselves facing impossible odds. "The galaxy has turned against us," Admiral Hayes wrote. "Perhaps they are right to do so. We have burned too many worlds, killed too many innocents. But we cannot stop. It is what we are now. Fire and death follow us wherever we go." Carol read the final entry herself. "Tomorrow we make our last stand. The combined fleets of 40 species are closing in on our position. We will fight, because that is all we know how to do anymore. If any of our people survive, if any humans escape this final battle, I hope they will learn from our mistakes. I hope they will remember that we were once more than just destroyers. I hope they will find a way to be human without being monsters." Carol closed the journal and looked at her team. They had found the truth about humanity's past. Their ancestors had not been victims. They had been the galaxy's worst nightmare, a species so good at destruction that they had forgotten how to be anything else. But now Carol and her team faced a bigger question. The ancient humans had been defeated, but some had obviously survived. Those survivors had eventually founded the colonies that became modern human civilization. The question was whether modern humans would repeat the mistakes of their ancestors, or whether they could find a way to use their abilities for something better than conquest and destruction. President Kevin Brown stood before the United Earth Assembly and looked out at the faces of humanity's leaders. The Great Hall was filled with representatives from every human world and colony. They had all come to hear the truth about their species and to decide what humanity would do next. "We now know who we really are," Kevin began. "We are the descendants of the galaxy's greatest monsters. Our ancestors were not heroes. They were destroyers who turned warfare into a science of maximum suffering." The assembly was quiet. Everyone had read the reports from Dr. Carol Woods and her team. Everyone knew about Admiral Julia Hayes and the ancient human empire that had terrorized the galaxy. "But we are not our ancestors," Kevin continued. "We have a choice. We can repeat their mistakes, or we can choose a different path." General Lisa Martinez stood up to address the assembly. As the head of Earth's military forces, her opinion carried great weight. "The galaxy fears us," Lisa said. "They see our weapons and our tactics, and they remember what our ancestors did to them. But that fear can be useful. We can use it to bring peace instead of war." Director Ray Collins of the Galactic Relations Department had spent weeks developing a new plan for humanity's role in the galaxy. His idea was radical and dangerous, but it might be their only chance for a peaceful future. "I propose that we embrace what we are," Ray said. "We are the galaxy's ultimate warriors. Instead of hiding from that fact, we should use it to become the galaxy's ultimate peacekeepers." The idea was simple but revolutionary. Humanity would offer their services as protectors to alien civilizations. They would use their feared weapons and tactics not to conquer, but to defend those who could not defend themselves. Commander Jeff King had been chosen to test this new approach. His mission was to travel to the Tau Ceti system, where a peaceful, alien colony was being threatened by space pirates. Jeff's job was to protect the aliens while showing them that humans could be trusted. The journey to Tau Ceti took 3 weeks. When Jeff's ship arrived, the alien colonists were terrified. They had heard the stories about the returning firebearers, and they expected to be enslaved or killed. But Jeff had orders to do something different. Instead of demanding tribute or taking control of the colony, he simply asked what they needed. "We want to help you," Jeff told the alien leaders through his translation device. "Tell us what threatens you and we will stop it." The alien colonists were confused. In their experience, firebearers took what they wanted by force. They had never heard of humans asking for permission to help. "The raiders come every few months," the alien leader explained. "They steal our food and supplies. They take our people as slaves. We cannot stop them because we have no weapons." "Show us where they come from," Jeff said. "We will make sure they never bother you again." Jeff's mission revealed something important about humanity's new role. The alien pirates were using advanced energy weapons and sophisticated technology, but they had no defense against humanity's primitive approach to warfare. The human attack was swift and brutal. Jeff's ships used kinetic weapons that the pirates could not deflect. They launched missiles that created explosions the pirates had not seen in centuries. They used chemical weapons that bypassed the pirates' energy shields. The pirate fleet was destroyed in less than 2 hours. But more importantly, the alien colonists saw that the humans had used their terrible power to protect innocent people instead of hurting them. Captain Rose Davis faced a different challenge. Her security team had been assigned to protect a trade convoy traveling through dangerous space. The convoy included ships from 7 different alien species, and none of them wanted human protection. "We have heard what your kind does to those under your protection," the convoy leader told Rose. "You enslave them and burn their worlds." "That was our ancestors," Rose replied. "We are different. How can we know this?" Rose decided to prove it through action. When the convoy was attacked by raiders, she could have easily destroyed the attacking ships and claimed the convoy as spoils of war. That was what the ancient humans would have done. Instead, Rose used precise strikes to disable the raider ships without destroying them. She then helped repair the convoy vessels that had been damaged in the attack. Most importantly, she refused any payment for her services. "This is what we are now," Rose told the alien convoy leader after the battle. "We protect because it is right, not because we want something in return." The real test came during the Sigma Draconis crisis. Admiral Sam Wright received a distress call from the Crystalline Collective, a peaceful species that was under attack by an unknown aggressive alien force. The attackers were a species called the Void Hunters. They used advanced technology and sophisticated tactics. They had been conquering star systems throughout the galaxy for months, and no one had been able to stop them. When Sam's fleet arrived at Sigma Draconis, they found the Crystalline Collective's homeworld under siege. The Void Hunters had surrounded the planet with their ships and were bombarding the surface with energy weapons. The Void Hunters were confident in their superiority. They had defeated every enemy they had encountered using their advanced energy, weapons, and cyber warfare capabilities. They were not prepared for humanity's approach to combat. The human attack was unlike anything the Void Hunters had ever faced. Instead of engaging in the elegant energy weapon duels that most space battles involved, the humans used chaotic and unpredictable tactics. Human fighters launched waves of chemical explosive missiles that created massive fireballs in space. Human warships fired solid projectile weapons that punched through energy shields like they were made of paper. Human marines boarded enemy vessels and used thermite charges to cut through bulkheads that were supposed to be indestructible. The Void Hunters had technology that was centuries ahead of humanity's, but their weapons were designed to fight other advanced civilizations. They had no defense against humanity's primitive approach to warfare. The battle lasted only 4 hours. The entire Void Hunter fleet was either destroyed or disabled. The Sawab crystalline collective was saved, and word of humanity's victory spread throughout the galaxy. After the battle, Elder Crystal Singer Harmony approached Admiral Wright. The crystalline being was one of the oldest and wisest creatures in the galaxy. It had lived through the time of the ancient fire-bearers, and it remembered the terror they had brought. "You are not what I expected," Harmony told Sam. "Your ancestors brought only death and suffering, but you have brought salvation." "We learned from their mistakes," Sam replied. "We choose to protect instead of destroy." "Will you stay?" Harmony asked. "Will you help us defend against others who would harm us?" Sam looked at the damaged planet below. The crystalline collective had built a beautiful civilization based on art and philosophy. They had no weapons and no desire for war. They needed protection from those who would take advantage of their peaceful nature. "We will stay," Sam promised. "As long as you need us, we will be here." Ambassador Nancy White's final report to Earth marked the beginning of a new era for humanity. The galaxy was slowly beginning to understand that these new humans were different from their ancestors. "The ancient fire-bearers used their power to conquer and destroy," Nancy wrote. "But we use our power to protect and defend. The galaxy is starting to see the difference." The change was not easy or fast. Many alien civilizations still feared humans and expected them to eventually reveal their true nature as conquerors. But with each successful protection mission, with each act of selfless defense, humanity built trust. Human forces established protection bases throughout the galaxy. They defended trade routes from pirates. They protected peaceful colonies from raiders. They intervened in conflicts to prevent genocides and massacres. The irony was not lost on humanity's leaders. Their ancestors had used fire and war to terrorize the galaxy into submission. Now their descendants use the same tools to protect the galaxy from those who would harm it. Dr. Carol Woods, reflecting on the discovery that had started it all, wrote in her final report, "We found evidence of our species' greatest shame, but that shame has become our greatest opportunity. We know what we are capable of when we choose destruction. Now we can show the galaxy what we are capable of when we choose protection." As Admiral Sam Wright noted in his personal log, "We are still the species that mastered fire and war, but we have learned to use that mastery not to burn down civilizations, but to light the way for those who seek peace. We are no longer the fire-bearers who bring destruction. We are the fire-keepers who guard the light of civilization itself." The galaxy had feared the return of the fire-bearers for 800 years. What they got instead were the fire-keepers, protectors who used their terrible power to ensure that the galaxy's peaceful species could continue to exist without fear. Humanity had found a way to be both feared and loved, both powerful and trusted. They had become what their ancestors never could, the galaxy's guardians rather than its destroyers.